Week 10 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few quarterbacks I looked at off the waiver wire this week. The first guy, Joshua Dobbs of the Minnesota Vikings. So Dobbs, we know he was traded at the deadline to the Minnesota Vikings after Kirk Cousins out for the season with the torn Achilles. And Dobbs coming off the bench in this game after Jaron Hall went down with injury. What a ball game it was for Dobbs to lead the Vikings down in that fourth quarter and win the game. So he finished the game 158 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 66 rush yards, a rushing touchdown, a 2-point conversion, and 2 fumble losses. So Dobbs, we know he had some good games this season with the Arizona Cardinals. And now here with the Minnesota Vikings, obviously with better weapons, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, Alexander Madison out of the backfield here. And even Powell and KJ Osborne, even though we saw Osborne leave the game. So right now with good weapons, and it looks like he's going to have the starting job the rest of the way. Coming into this game, not knowing the playbook, street football, he was Joshua Dobbs, and he got the job done. So I know Week 10's a tougher matchup versus New Orleans Saints. But like I said, if you need a quarterback in deeper leagues with 4 teams on bye next week, or injuries around the league, or just a lot of quarterbacks struggling in general, I think Dobbs is a good pickup this week. And right now, he's available in 84% of fantasy leagues. The next quarterback's Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Baker Mayfield, once again, a solid ball game. Over 20 fantasy points, 265 pass yards, 2 touchdowns at Houston. And they drove down the field towards the end of the game, and they thought they had it. It was Tampa Bay. And obviously, C.J. Stroud drove down with 40 seconds left, and what a game it was for him and the Texans to win in that shootout. So Baker Mayfield's been solid this season. Last few games, he's gone out there, put up fantasy points. Week 8 of Buffalo, 237 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 19 rushing yards, a 2-point conversion, and then the solid game of Houston. So Week 10, I know it's a tougher matchup versus Tennessee Titans, where it's tough at times for teams to pass on this Titan defense. But right here, Baker's got good weapons. Mike Evans and him have been on the same rapport. K-Dot, and we saw find the end zone and break out in this one with 2 touchdowns in this game in Week 9. And Chris Godwin, a solid receiver as well. So right now, we're quarterback after the top 6-7 guys being a weak position once again this year. Mayfield's out there in 52% of fantasy leagues. The next quarterback's Gardner Minshew of the Indianapolis Colts. So Minshew's been pretty decent, I believe, as a starter for this Colts team. I know it wasn't a great game for him at Carolina, but he didn't have to do too much in that one, where his defense helped him out in a big way with 2 pick sixes in the game at Carolina in Week 9. 127 pass yards, a touchdown, and 5 rushing yards. So right now, Week 10, another Germany game here. We saw between the Chiefs and the Dolphins in Week 9, and now it's a game at versus the Patriots here, where we know this Patriot team, it's been a horrible season for them. So Gardner Minshew, we know, has a good arm. We know he's a gunslinger, but one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league as well. And you got good weapons, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, even though we know he left this game with injury, Taylor and Zach Moss out of the backfield. So right here, Gardner Minshew, he's been a solid quarterback over the last few weeks. Not putting up huge fantasy points, but we've seen some decent games out of him. And right now, he's available as well as Minshew in tons of leagues at 74%. Next quarterback's Will Levis of the Tennessee Titans. So we'll see if Levis is going to continue to be the starter. But to be honest, he's looked pretty well with Levis. I know he didn't throw for any touchdowns in Week 9 at Pittsburgh, with 262 pass yards and an interception in that one. So he's got a big arm. He can make plays. He took a beating in that game on Thursday night, taking big hits and sacks versus that Steelers team. But Levis hung in there in the pocket, and he gave his team a chance to go down the field and win at the end, but picked off in the end zone. So Levis, the first 2 games, like I said, he's looked pretty good. And Week 8 was his coming out party, 238 pass yards, 4 touchdowns. So right now he's got a big arm, is Will Levis. He's got a good matchup of Week 10 at Tampa Bay that just got carved up by C.J. Stroud. But the only thing with Levis is if he's going to start in this game or not here, because we're going to see what Mike Vrabel wants to do. Supposedly Tuesday, he's going to come down with a decision. But anyway, Levis, he's out there right now, 55% of fantasy leagues. And the final quarterback I looked at off the wire this week here is Taylor Heineke of the Atlanta Falcons. So we know Heineke's a gunslinger. We know he takes a lot of chances, and we saw in his Washington Commander days. And now in the first 2 outings as a Falcon, Week 8 at Tennessee, coming in the third quarter, and that won 175 pass yards, a touchdown. And Week 9 versus Minnesota, 268 pass yards, a touchdown, an INT, and 20 rush yards. So a great matchup Week 10 at the Cardinals that obviously can't stop anyone. They give up 7th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. And Heineke's got a decent weapons around him. Jonnu Smith had a big game, No doubt about it, finding the end zone with 90 yards in that one. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, even though he missed the game. But Heineke, like I said, he's a gunslinger. He could stretch the field, and he could even make plays with his legs if he needs to. So right now, with a good matchup at the Arizona Cardinals, available in tons of leagues at 89%. He's a quarterback I look to add this week, so that's a few quarterbacks I look to add off the wire for Week 10 of the fantasy football season.